When a story goes viral on Reddit, you know it's gonna be a good one. And today I have a selection of the most viral, embarrassing stories in all of Reddit. So stay tuned because it'll only get cringier and cringier and cringier. Let's dive in. At the end of this story, you will laugh and cringe at the same time. Today, I effed up by jumping into a lake in my bra panties to save a man. That turned out to be an elite military scuba diver in training. That's embarrassing. Here's the story. I'm couch surfing with my sister and her boyfriend. I work for him at the lakeside bar trying to pay for college. My state is open, and while I'm not thrilled, I need both the job and my escort sofa accommodations to make it work. To give them their space and myself a break from the doom scrolling, I run by the lake in the mornings. This amazing lake draws scuba divers to the flooded town at the bottom. Today I was running when a dark mass floated to the surface 40 feet away. I was on the craggy side of the lake and this guy looked D-E-A-D, dead, phasing away from me. His head was tipped back, eyes closed, bobbing like a fishing lure. No one else was around, so I thought he was diving alone at the crack of dawn, maybe giving himself the bends or something. Like a jackass, I didn't yell at him to check in. Instead, I took off my shoes and stripped to my skivvies to save the imbecile. In my mind, I was about to heroically launch into the deep water, but instead, my feet hit the sharp rocks and clumsily pitched myself into the water, doing a side flop. I was also wearing my contacts, so I swam hard toward him with my eyes closed. When I opened them, he was dead ass staring at me like I'd lost my mind, so I blurted, "Are you okay?" He removed the regulator and incredulously said, "Yes." My brain blue screened as I tread water. The lake felt infinitely deep. Before I could terrify myself, I turned to leave, yelling over my shoulder, "I thought you needed saving," to explain my idiocy. As I pivoted, another guy cleared his throat from 30 feet away on the other side. I hadn't heard a sound from him, so I freaked out, belting a scream at him. Both guys laughed as more heads surfaced around us. I was surrounded by divers, all widely entertained by my ridiculous high-octane F-up. After pointing to me in the beach, the merman, who was my original target, cautiously swam toward me. I nodded and they escorted me to the shore. The beach was much further than I had anticipated, so I was trying to breathe quietly, hiding my need for air. Also, the comedy of the situation consumed me and I started to giggle. Finally, I joked, "Dude, you are lucky you weren't dying because it would have taken everything I have to drag your sorry ass this far." He chuckled before offering me a tow. Hell no, not gonna happen. Even if I had to dog paddle, I wouldn't accept the defeat. He quietly mocked me the rest of the way to the shore. I'm a secret sap for it. They were cadets or recent graduates from a military college here for the summer. They'd been out there at least part of the night. I'm sure I blew up whatever drill they were running. He's training for pre-dive school, and since I am an expert Googler, I'm guessing that means combat diving. At the shore, I did my best to throw my shoulders back and march out of the water in my sports bra and undies in front of what I can only imagine are some pretty badass men. I invited him and his clandestine crew for an absurdly overpriced beer at the bar tonight before shame jogging back into the woods for my clothes. Wow, alright, let's take a look at what Reddit commenters had to say. A lot of people thought the woman was really brave for jumping in to help. I think so too. One comment said, "She was so brave to dive in without thinking twice, I would have hesitated." Others focused on how funny the situation was. Someone said, "This sounds like something from a romantic comedy." I agree. A few commenters joked about how the divers must have been laughing at her the whole time. I bet they were just trying to not crack up during the training. And now, let's reveal Reddit's opinion. 60% thought the woman was pretty awesome for jumping in and trying to help. They admired her bravery and sense of humor about the situation. 30% of commenters were more skeptical, saying they wouldn't have done the same thing and would have just called for help. Sometimes the best stories come from the most unexpected situations. If you enjoyed this one, and I definitely did, let us know in the comments. This is a story of how a guy's feet led to a true disaster and some serious pain. Today, I effed up by smelling my feet and ending up in the emergency room. Let's read it. I'll be the first to admit that my feet are sometimes a little bit smelly. Some of my friends and family have lovingly said they are odorly challenged. I I wash them in the shower every day and have tried the fancy creams, but none of it helps. At this point, I've accepted that I'm just naturally a stinkfoot and will live my life with a constant faint corn chip aroma wafting from my toes. I live alone, and when at home, I prefer not to wear socks or shoes. This is occasionally a point of contention with my girlfriend, who visits often and insists I at least wear socks when she's over. It's mostly fun banter where she teases me for my feet smelling and I tease her for something like a loud burp, but sometimes after a particularly long day, the foot factory releases emissions that would surely get me fined by the EPA, which she rightfully hates. Yesterday, she came over for dinner. It was a nice day, so we decided to get delivery from one of our favorite restaurants and eat on the balcony. I was at home and had already liberated my tootsies from their foot prisons. I thought it'd be nice to set the table with some flowers for my lady. While I was outside setting up, she arrived and immediately came out to greet me. She recoiled in disgust the moment she smelled my feet. It was a dramatic reaction. Fake vomiting, fake crying. She was hamming it up as part of our banter. I had gone a bit nose blind to them over the years, so I leaned against the railing to balance and went to smell them myself to see how bad oh my goodness, to see how bad they were. This was my mistake. I'm a burly guy, and the poor railing couldn't handle my overdramatic reaction of throwing my head back and screaming. It gave way. Luckily, I was only on the second floor, so I fell maybe 25 feet, but it felt like it lasted a solid minute. It was long enough for me to reflect on the situation and feel like an idiot for almost dying from smelling my own feet. The aftermath is a fractured rib and a dislocated shoulder, and my girlfriend never let me live this down. All right, let's take a look at what Reddit commenters had to say. Foot odor jokes were everywhere. People couldn't stop cracking up over the whole smelly feet situation. One comment said, make sure the fruit basket has some this one's funny. Make sure the fruit basket has some durian so they know it's from you. Wow, that is harsh. Safety concerns were also a big deal. A lot of people were worried about that broken railing. One comment read, the railing of your apartment gave way and nearly killed you. Was it rusty? Uncared for? Some gave legal advice. A few people suggested he should talk to a lawyer. They should call me. With one comment saying, you need to do this so that when you have long-term complications from falling, which you will, you aren't on the interest for paying for that treatment. And now, let's reveal Reddit's opinion. 60% of people were concerned about the faulty railing and urged the OP to consider legal action. A lot of comments suggested, you should definitely talk to that lawyer, this is serious. 25% of people found the situation hilarious. They kept the jokes coming, especially about the foot odor. So, what do you think? Would you risk it all just to smell your own feet? Let us know in the comments below. Picture this. You run into an ex after years thinking it'll be sweet, a nostalgic moment, but it turns out to be the most awkward encounter ever. Stick around to see how everything went completely wrong. Today, I effed up when I saw my ex. Here's the story. This is more of a personal embarrassment. I ran into an ex today. And I don't mean recent, I mean from decades ago. I hadn't seen this person since our breakup back when we were young. At the time, it was my first love, and I didn't handle the breakup well. I didn't do anything super crazy like boil bunnies, but I did call and leave tearful messages on their answering machine. I've moved on, been married, and had kids, but there's always a place in your heart that your first love holds. I was not their special first love. First of all, I was at a place where I'd gone with that ex back then. It's a popular spot I visited before and since, but for some reason, I remember today the time we carved our initials into a tree. I didn't even look at the tree, just remembered it for a moment. You know, it must have been that phenomenon where you randomly think of someone right before you see them because a few minutes later, they were there. Being the idiot that I am, I thought it would be a friendly run-in like, hey, long time no see. First, they didn't know who I was until I said my name. Then, for some stupid reason, I said, I was just thinking about you. Crickets. Disbelief. I backpedaled and said that we used to come to this place a lot. they didn't remember it at all. Oh my god. I always thought if I ever saw this person again, I'd be cool, not stick my foot in my mouth or sound like a crazy stalker. Now, of course, I keep replaying it in my mind and cringing every time. I saw an ex after decades and made myself look like a desperate idiot. Alright, let's take a look at what the Reddit commenters had to say. A lot of people shared their own embarrassing moments with exes. They said, I've had that happen too, running into someone you once cared about and realizing they don't remember anything can sting. Many commenters reminded the OP that these moments don't define you. We've all had those embarrassing run-ins, one commenter said. It doesn't mean you're still stuck on them, just human. A few even suggested ways to handle these awkward situations better next time. Just take a deep breath and laugh it off. Not every reunion needs to be perfect. And now, let's reveal Reddit's opinions. 80% of people said they understand how awkward it can be when an ex doesn't remember you or the good times you shared. They agreed it's just part of your life and it doesn't mean it's anything negative about you. 15% think the OP could have been more mindful and handled things differently. Remember, awkwardness is just a part of the journey. We've all been there. Let us know your opinion in the comments. You won't believe how this simple prank became viral all over the internet. Today, I effed up by canceling my roommate's favorite TV show. Here's the story. This didn't happen today, but many years ago when I was in college. My roommate, who was obsessed with a particular TV show, was deeply involved in forums and chat rooms about it. At the time, it was uncertain whether the show would be canceled. Being an immature 19-year-old, I decided to have a little fun. I'd recently discovered a service that would distribute anyone's article for free. Knowing my roommate had alerts set up for anything related to the show, I figured he'd be the first to see what I was about to do. I wrote an article announcing the show's cancellation. I started off making it sound official, but deliberately added bizarre, nonsensical statements that would never appear in an official announcement. I sent it in and promptly forgot about it. The next morning, after getting up and jumping in the shower, I heard my roommate shout, "Oh my god!" I walked back into the room and asked, "What's going on?" My roommate looked devastated. "They canceled it! They canceled it! They're idiots!" I asked him why. He read the rest of the article aloud, and he reached the bizarre statements. He paused, confused, and said, "What the hell is this crap?" I burst out laughing, and my roommate realized he'd been had. He shook his head. "You're an ass. Seriously, dude? How did you even get that out there?" We laughed, and he vowed to get me back before I went off to class. Later that day, I walked into our dorm, and my roommate had a huge grin on his face. "Congratulations, dude. You're famous," he said happily. "What did you do?" I asked. "Oh, I didn't do anything," he replied. "This is all you're doing." He sent me a link, and when I opened it, it led to a post on a fan forum about the show. The subject was the show's cancellation, and the post was a direct copy of my fake article. Fans were devastated, completely ignoring the bizarre statements, and they believed the fake article was an official announcement. I couldn't believe how far it had spread. As I read through page after page of upset fans mourning the show, the mood shifted when the creator of the show posted. He said, "I hope we're not canceled because I'm at the office working and fielding calls from writers asking if they still have jobs." "Oh shoot," I said. My roommate burst out laughing. "Oh shoot is right, dude." The comments then turned from anger at the network to anger at whatever freaking effed decided to pull this stunt. The fans were furious. They even threatened to track me down and beat me up. I learned my roommate was far from the most devoted fan. At least he thought it was funny. They contacted the network and the show creator, urging them to serve paperwork on the service I used to release the article to find my IP, which would trace back to the college. This could have led to disciplinary action or even legal trouble. I spent the next 2 months worried about getting expelled or arrested. Meanwhile, my roommate just laughed and told me it served me right. The following month, the fake article was mentioned in TV Guide and is still referenced on the show's IMDb and Wikipedia pages. As for me, I haven't spoken about this in years and still use a throwaway account because my regular one has too much of me on it. Alright, let's take a look at what Reddit commenters had to say. A lot of people couldn't believe how fast things escalated. One comment said, "It's crazy how a small joke turned into such a huge mess." People were shocked by how quickly it all got out of control. Others were more critical of the prankster, with many saying, "Pranks can be fun, but don't mess with people's emotions. Think before you act." They wanted to remind people about the risks of pranks like this. However, some people sympathized with the prankster. A few said it wasn't meant to hurt anyone. Sometimes things just get out of hand. It's clear that not everyone thought the prank was a complete disaster. And now, let's reveal Reddit's opinion. 60% of people thought the prank was a bad idea. They felt it was irresponsible and pointed out how it caused real stress for the fans and the show's creators. 35% thought the prank was funny and didn't mean any harm. They believed the overreaction from fans made things blow up bigger than necessary. Have you ever pulled a joke like that got way out of hand? Let us know in the comments. I thought Tic Tacs were 0 calories, but I was wrong. This is a quote from today's story, and if you want to know the full story, stay tuned. Today, I effed up by not telling my doctor how many Tic Tacs I eat per day. Here's the story. I'm obsessed with the fruit adventure flavor of Tic Tacs. The flavor and the soft smush they make between your teeth when you chew them make my brain very happy. I buy them in bulk, where each container has 200 candies, and they come in packs of 12. I tend to eat them by the handful while I'm working or gaming, so I can easily go through 1 to 2 containers in a day. On the nutrition label, it says the serving size is 1 candy with 0 calories, which I thought was great because I could have as many as I wanted. Over the past year, I gained about 40 pounds and nothing about my eating habits had changed as far as I knew. I told my doctor and she was a little concerned, so she had me do blood work to see if there was an underlying cause. Everything came back normal, so she referred me to a weight loss doctor who also had me see a dietitian. I've been working with the dietitian for a few months now and she had me keep a food log. During a virtual visit today, I was fiddling with an empty container and she asked where I got such a large one. I told her about how I eat 1 to 2 containers a day and she asked why they weren't on my food tracker. I said it was because they were 0 calories, so they didn't count. I was very wrong. She explained that food companies can label something as 0 calories if the serving size contains 5 or fewer calories. In reality, each Tic Tac has about 2 calories. So since each container has 200 pieces and I usually eat 1 to 2 of those, I've been consuming 400, 800 plus calories per day from Tic Tacs, in addition to everything else I eat, which is likely why I gained so much weight. Edit. Just to clarify, I know that sugar causes weight gain, I'm not that stupid, but I never checked the product ingredients. I assumed they must be made with something like xylitol or another artificial sweetener, so it never crossed my mind to check. Edit 2. Dang, y'all are brutal, but at least some good came from it. Apparently, a lot of people didn't realize the less than 5 calories per serving rule can legally be classified as 0 in the US. I wish we had the model used in other countries where they list calories per X amount of grams. Edit 3. My teeth are fine. I just had a dentist appointment 2 weeks ago. No cavities, no decay, and gums are healthy. Despite my candy habit, I take good care of my teeth. Alright, let's take a look at what Reddit commenters had to say. Many people pointed out that Tic Tacs can be labeled as 0 calories even though they have 2 calories each. One user explained, Tic Tacs are small enough to be called sugar-free, but they're almost pure sugar. There were plenty of funny comments about the massive amount of Tic Tacs consumed. One person said, bro ate 40 pounds of Tic Tacs. Another did the math and said, that's around 1,750 packs of Tic Tacs. A dietitian shared some useful tips about food tracking. You have to be detailed when you track food. Many people forget things like sugar-free candy, sweeteners, and oils. And now, let's reveal Reddit's opinion. 70% focused on the confusion around the 0-calorie label. Just like our OP, commenters were surprised by how misleading it can be. 25% laughed at how many Tic Tacs were consumed and joked about the weight gain. Remember, when it comes to your health, paying attention to the details, like what's in your food, matters. Make sure to pick the right choices for your health, even if it's something as simple as candy. This is a story of how a harmless joke turned into a very awkward moment. Today, I effed up by telling a girl she turned me gay. Here's the story. This happened a few hours ago, and my husband keeps teasing me about it. To clarify, I'm a bisexual guy. There's a Barnes & Noble I visit semi-regularly. There's also a cute girl who works there, Megan, whom I had a crush on years ago. We liked the same books and had a few polite conversations. One day, I worked up the courage to ask her out, and she gave me her number. But a few days later, she let me down easily, and I didn't go back to that Barnes & Noble for a while. After the awkwardness wore off, I would go back. We'd be polite, though there was still some tension. At least I thought so. Fast forward a few years, and I'm married to my wonderful husband. Megan still works at the Barnes & Noble. I went there with my husband, and Megan was there. She was busy, so I didn't try to talk to her. My husband was on the other side of the store, and I was in the manga section. Don't judge. I turned a corner and almost bumped into Megan. We apologized, laughed, and had a small talk about one of Sarah J. Maas's new books coming out in January. At some point, she noticed my ring and congratulated me. I said thank you, and this is how the conversation went. Megan, I hope she makes you happy. I hear marriage is tough. I replied, he does make me happy. We've only been married a few weeks, dated for a year, and things have been smooth. She looked confused. He? And here's my F up. I decided to be funny and said, yeah, when you rejected me, I thought I'd have more luck on the guy's side, and I was right, so thank you for turning me. I laughed, hoping she'd get the sarcasm in my voice, but she didn't. She turned red and teared up, then apologized and quickly ran to a side room before I could explain I was joking. I waited for about 15 minutes, but it didn't seem like she was coming out, so I found my husband and we made a hasty retreat to the car. I told him what happened and he laughed, calling me a monster jokingly. I may need to find a new bookstore. Alright, let's take a look at what Reddit commenters had to say. Many commenters were quick to point out that the joke was hurtful. One person said, I think you KO'd her with emotional damage. Ouch, that hit hard. Other commenters lightened the mood with some D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, references. Nat 20, or is that considered force or psychic damage? These funny references show how humor can lighten up the awkwardness of the situation. Some people shared their own stories of similar experiences, like one commenter saying, my friend has had 4 long-term relationships, and all 4 have gone out to come out as lesbians after dating him. It's amazing how these personal stories made the comment section so much more relatable. And now, let's reveal Reddit's opinion. 80% believe that OP was wrong and the joke was out of line and ended up hurting Megan. Surprisingly, 15% of people thought the OP was just being awkward and didn't think it was that big of a deal. It seems like most people felt the joke caused more emotional damage than it was worth. Now remember, a joke can be funny, but it's always important to consider how it might affect others. What's your opinion on the question? Let us know in the comments. This story will show you how a boyfriend and a dog can plan one of the funniest Reddit revenge stories. I unionized with my dogs against my boyfriend. Here's the story. My boyfriend, 30-year-old male, and I, 26-year-old male, have been together for 4 years. When we first started dating, his apartment was messy, but he blamed it on his roommates. I figured the place wasn't up to my standards of cleanliness. Almost 3 years ago, I moved in with him, and we adopted 2 dogs together. It quickly became clear that we have different definitions of clean. We talked about it and he's made progress, but he still has one annoying habit, leaving his striped socks on the couch. I've had to chase the dogs around after they find them, but he finds it funny. Over the past few weeks, I bought cloth dog toys that look like his socks and trained our dogs to play tug of war with them. Now, whenever he leaves socks on the couch, the dogs go straight for them, and I no longer stop them. Yesterday, he came home to find his favorite socks shredded in the living room and was furious that I hadn't stopped them. I reminded him they were the same socks he'd left his socks on the couch the day before and should have put it in the hamper. He stormed off to his office and hasn't spoken to me since. Am I the a-hole? Edit. My dogs don't eat the socks. They only play tug of war with them. Once the socks tear, they lose interest. Alright, let's take a look at what Reddit commenters had to say. Support for the OP's plan. Many commenters loved how the OP turned to the dogs for a creative solution. One person wrote, the dogs were the perfect partners in crime. Brilliant move. Communication is key. Some folks felt the OP should have a more serious talk with the boyfriend instead of letting the sock situation escalate. One person said, you can't just prank your partner. A serious chat was needed. Mixed feelings on the boyfriend's reaction. Some defended his anger, whilst others thought he was being dramatic. A comment read, if he wants to keep his socks safe, he shouldn't leave them on the couch. It's clear there's some debate about whether or not he overreacted. And now, let's reveal Reddit's opinion. 70% of the comments are on the OP's side, praising the cleverness of the plan and the use of the dogs as partners in crime. 30% of people feel that the boyfriend's reaction was justified, with some suggesting the OP should have talked it through first instead of letting it go this far. Now, that's where things get interesting. While the majority loves the humor and creativity, a significant portion believes that there's a lesson about communication here. So, what do you think? Was the OP's plan brilliant? Or should they have handled it differently? Relationships are all about balance, humor, communication, and respect. This story has a little bit of everything, but with a twist. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you like more stories like this one, don't forget to like and subscribe.